We had made a trip back to San Diego in 2015, and I specifically remember paying a visit to one of my favorite beaches, Solana Beach, and I just remember looking at all the wealth and not necessarily, I didn't feel like I wanted to be wealthy, but I thought to myself, what do these people do for a living? Are these cars paid off that they're driving? And it just made me realize, if I did not want to have a care in the world and do the things I wanted to do, I had to pay off my debt.
You're listening to Nurses on Fire, the podcast for nurses by nurses aspiring to financial independence. I'm your host, Naseema McElroy of Financially Intentional. Let's spark some flames, y'all. Welcome back to the Nurses on Fire podcast. And if this is your first time listening, thank you so much for tuning in. I would be eternally grateful if you took a moment to subscribe, leave a review, and share with other nurses that you know could benefit. When you post that review, please make sure to take a screenshot and send it to Naseema at financiallyintentional.com. I'll be giving away some goodies, so make sure you do that. So before we get into this episode, I want to give you a heads up that I'm going to open the doors to my membership program soon to give you a chance to work with me. I'm also launching a new segment of the podcast where we will have a certified financial planner do a deep dive into your finances. So if you want to learn more about either, please make sure you're signed up to my mailing list at financiallyintentional.com/NOF list. That's NOF list for Nurses on Fire. All right, so this episode is special because we have a future nurse that has been up to some incredible things. Danielle is a full-time nursing student, wife, and mother of 2 young girls. Her passion for debt-free living began in 2015, and she and her husband paid off $73,000 in debt and have a goal to cash flow her way through nursing school. Without further ado, episode 14 of the Nurses on Fire podcast. This future nurse is living debt-free. All right, so on this episode of Nurses on Fire, we have Danielle joining us. Hey, Danielle.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I just finished my first nursing exam, so I passed. So that's a great start to my week. So.
That is a great start to nursing school.
Yes.
More power to you, girl, because I could not go back to nursing school. But, you get through it, and then, the real learning starts when you become a nurse.
Exactly. One day at a time, that's for sure.
So we just jump right into it. But Danielle, can you tell everybody a little bit about yourself?
Yes, I am originally from San Diego, California. Lived there most of my life, did my undergrad there, met my husband there, my now husband there, and then we moved over to live in the Midwest, and we've been here for about 7 years. We have 2 girls, ages 3 and 1.5. And as I mentioned, I am now in nursing school. So that's an interesting journey that has just started. But we're here and we're settled in, and I'm enjoying it so far. So
that's awesome. So yay, future nurse in the house. Is there a particular area of nursing that you want to go into?
Right now I say NICU, and I know that can change. Our youngest daughter was in the NICU for 4 days, although we came to the conclusion that there was nothing physically or anatomically wrong with her. It was an experience that kind of opened my eyes, and I think that's where I'm leaning toward right now.
Yeah, NICU is a very special place. I really have a special place in my heart for NICU nurses. I can deliver the babies and I can do a little bit of the recovery, but when it comes to dealing with sick babies, I
Yeah.
leave that up to those nurses because they do a phenomenal job and they have a really big heart. And I love my NICU nurses. So, yeah, I
Yeah.
think that that would be an amazing experience. And NICU nurses are in high
Yeah.
demand. So, I'm sure you won't have a problem
Yeah.
finding the job.
Let's hope not.
So let's talk about your journey to debt freedom. So you are debt free
Yeah.
now, correct?
Correct. Yes, we paid off all of our debt in actually it will be a year next month, October. We paid off all of our debt.
And how much debt did you pay off?
$73,000 was actually the amount we had when we became proactive, but we started out with more from the beginning. But from when we started documenting, it was
Wow.
73,000.
Okay. And what inspired you to pay off your debt?
Yeah, we've always, paid the minimum, paid the minimum. We weren't, proactive or anything, but we had made a trip back to San Diego in 2015. And I specifically remember paying a visit to one of my favorite beaches, Solana Beach. And I just remember looking at all the wealth and not necessarily, I didn't feel like I wanted to be wealthy, but I thought to myself, what do these people do for a living? Are these cars paid off that they're driving? And it just made me realize, if I did not want to have a care in the world and do the things I wanted to do, I had to pay off my debt. So that's kind of how it started for us. And we came back to our home after that vacation and read Dave Ramsey's Total Money Makeover in about a day and a half, and just knew right then and there we're going to do
That's
this.
awesome. So, how did you pay off the debt? Like, what did you do? Follow the baby steps, or what approach did you take to pay off the debt?
Yeah, well, I know from the beginning, Dave Ramsey's baby step number one is the $1,000 of emergency fund. And we knew that was not enough. So, heightened that quite a bit and made sure that we had a good chunk in our savings account before we started anything else on top of the minimum payments toward our debt. So we sort of did a mixture of Dave Ramsey and our own rules. We started off with the Debt Snowball just to get that, gratification of paying off those small amounts first to get that win feeling. And then we swapped over to the debt avalanche once we were fully on board and started tackling those high interest debt payments.
I like that. I like that strategy. Yeah, I think,
Yeah,
personal finance is personal. And while I love Dave Ramsey's approach to paying off debt and gradual approach to building wealth, there's not really one cookie cutter way
mhm.
that'll work for people. But I think that it's definitely a good starting point for most people. And I also work the baby steps, and that's how I paid off my debt. I actually was okay with the $1,000 emergency fund because it was honestly
Oh,
the most money I've ever had in the savings account that just like stayed there consistently. So I was like, I can work with that, even though my expenses were really, really high. But
yeah.
like I said, that's why personal finance is personal,
Mhm.
because it has to work for what you're comfortable with. And I love that. So, how many years did it
Exactly.
take you to pay off the debt?
So let's see, we started May of 2015 and paid everything off in October of 2018. So that 3 years and a couple
Wow.
months.
So over
Yeah.
$70,000 in 3 years.
Yes.
That is incredible.
Hmm.
That is incredible.
Yeah. So during those 3 years and 4 months, during that time, I was working full time, and then we had our first daughter, and we stopped paying off debt and saved endlessly. And then I switched over to part time once she was born, and we applied all of that savings toward our debt in one big chunk. And then after our second daughter was born, I swapped to staying home full time. And the same thing during that pregnancy, we stopped, paying over the minimum and applied all of that was saved toward those 9.5 months toward all of our debt toward the end. So, point of me saying that is starting a family. and paying off debt can be done at the same time. It is, even if you lessen your work hours, it can be done. It's a journey, and it has to be specific to your situation.
Well, not despite, but you were able to pay off all this debt in 3.5 years. And you had a lot of transitions. You had 2 kids during the time you from working
Yeah.
full time
Hmm.
to working part time to transitioning to staying at home. Like a lot of people think that once
Yeah.
you're on a journey like this, in order to accomplish it, you have to like grind hard and do all these things and like be super
Hmm.
uncomfortable. But
Hmm.
really, it's just about setting a goal and really being intentional about where your money is going. That makes the difference. And that's what most people just don't do. They just don't take that first step. So, it's not linear, you guys.
Yeah.
There's setbacks. You had a sick baby that was in the NICU. There's all these things that can come up in the way. But
Hmm.
just because these things happen don't mean that they have to be a deterrent. So I love that you guys persevered and you kept on pushing through it. Another thing that I love that you talk about is during the time when you were pregnant, when you were going through that stage, you actually stopped paying above your minimums and you built up your savings. And I think that that's a super important strategy
Right.
because you kind of never know, especially with childbirth. People always think that, oh, what is childbirth? It's just like another thing, but you never know what can happen during childbirth. And speaking as a labor and delivery nurse, it can go from a very pleasant situation to a very unfortunate situation in a relatively short amount of time. And that can be a heavy financial burden. So and I think that, in the labor and delivery world, we have all these kind of superstitious things that we do. But basically, always, if in the event, I mean, when we have everything ready, nothing bad happens. But on those days where we're worn out and we don't cross our T's and dot our I's, everything falls apart. So it's just like, that's why I love to stay ready. And I like that you guys had that in place. And then fortunately, you didn't really
Yeah.
need to use that money. And then you had that to throw at that debt. So it didn't really
Hmm.
set you back. So, yeah.
Right. It did not, it set us ahead, I guess you could say, during the, months after giving birth to both of my children. And, it felt like it gave us a head start, but really we just applied what we saved up and one lump sum.
So now you're going to nursing
Hmm.
school and you're committed to going to nursing school debt free, right?
Yes. Not taking out any student loans. We're done with that. So, yep, the program I'm in is a little different. And I realize it's pretty unique because the more I talk to people about their programs, they say, What kind of program are you in?" So my program is a dual admission program. I am at a community college, but I am considered BSN student. So how it works is that you take your first 18 months at the 2-year college and sit for your boards and then obtain your RN license. You can start working right away, and then you can take however many semesters you want off afterward and continue on at the university for their BSN portion. And that it could be done in as little as 3 semesters is at your own pace. So I don't know exactly what I'm going to do yet, but I mean, just to know that that option is there and I'm guaranteed a seat in that BSN program upon graduation is a really good feeling. I don't have to go through the application process again, and my seat is there for me. So,
That's a pretty awesome program
yeah.
actually, because you're getting the education, your RN education at
Mhm.
community college prices. How much is like your community college there?
Yeah. So the community college, well, I have a bachelor's degree already. So my cost for the community college education was a lot less, but that came to about 9,000. And after digging into it more, I actually sat with a counselor at the university this week. And to my surprise, it's only, again, 9,000 for the BSN portion. It's a 30-unit program.
For the BS community college
For
or
both, so separate. So 9,000 for the community college, yes, and then 9,000 for the BSN portion. And it surprised me. It's 30 units for the BSN at $300 a unit, and you can go as slow as you want, as quick as you want. So I don't think it's a bad deal at all.
I think that that's an awesome deal. Like, that's crazy. I mean,
Yeah,
like, look at me coming out of
yeah,
my RN program with, it was like $180,000 total after I finished all my degrees, but like 110 of that was just for my RN program. So that is a
yeah,
steal. And I wish I
yeah.
would have known about a program like that because, of course, I had a bachelor's degree too. And
Mhm,
my program was similar, right? Like it was the opposite way. So you went to a community college that can't necessarily
mhm.
award the BSN. I went to a graduate school that couldn't do a BSN. You can get an MSN, but
Oh,
the RN portion was a self-funded portion because it can be like it was. I went to a UC, a University of California school, so that part
okay.
wasn't necessarily covered under like the UC subsidies and all that kind of stuff. So it was considered
Mhm.
self-funded program. Therefore, it did not follow the same tuition guidelines as the master's program. So that 1 year of the RN portion was, I want to say like $50,000, but because it was full time,
Oh,
you had to account for like all your living expenses. So just for that 1 year, it
yeah.
was like $80,000.
Wow. Yeah, and that seems to be the common, amount seems to be the common cost of, BSN programs nowadays. So, yeah, a little on the high side, I'd say.
And was it worth it? I beg to differ. But at the end of the day, I was fortunate to get a job in the Bay Area where our salaries are higher than anywhere else in the country.
Oh, yes,
So that worked
absolutely.
out. But I know people that are making like $50,000 a year that have paid over $200,000 for their education, which is really unfortunate. So,
Oh,
I don't take for granted the fact that I
yes.
work in a place that actually pays nurses really well.
Mhm.
So that's cool. So, how are you paying for it if you're not taking out any debt?
We are just saving. And right now, we even, find things in our house and sell, and you'd be surprised how much that can add up. I used to teach online with VIP Kid, and I applied, my earnings from that. And we put that in savings. But mainly, we are just, saving whatever we don't put toward, our kids' college fund or, savings account, retirement accounts, we kind of set aside for my education. We don't spend lavishly, although now we do treat ourselves a little bit better than we did when we were on our debt free journey. And thankfully, my school does allow us to pay in installments, without any fees attached. So we have opted to do that. It's just three
That's pretty
payments
cool.
every
And I love
semester.
that you guys are cash flowing it but you guys are kind of used to
Mhm,
now basically saving because you have been throwing all this money at your debt. And so
mhm.
now it's nothing to shift and throw it at a goal. And I love that that's the
Right.
habit that paying off debt instills in you, is that now you build up all this momentum around your debt payoff and you've hit that goal. Now it's like anything is possible financially because now you can totally use that money towards investing. Now you use that moment to building wealth, and
Mhm,
definitely attaining your education is about building wealth. So I think that is phenomenal. So, and
mhm.
I love that the portion of your BSN you can go back and do because you can easily find a job as an RN. There's tons of hospitals that will hire
Right.
you on. And so I just recommend when you're going and doing your clinicals and stuff, get really close to those managers on the floor. Go talk to them, say, what do I need to do to get in here with my
Oh, yeah.
RN license? But if I don't even have my BSN, and do those things. And, all you have to do is
Right.
ask. And I really feel like just you coming to them and asking, oftentimes is the difference between you getting a job and other people getting a job. It's really about building those relationships because I know it was a very challenging time when I graduated from nursing school. And out of our class of 83, only three of us had jobs. And that was because of the relationships that we had built. Not mine was like right before nursing school. I worked in
Okay.
nursing administration for a hospital and kept those relationships strong. But other people was through networking with the floor managers where they were a student nurse. And I know that's made a difference even in being a nurse now. Like I see some of those nursing students and they come and they talk to the director of the floor and they say, I really want to work here. What are the things that I have to do? And I see them, later back working on the unit. And so I love to see those full circle moments. But oftentimes people are afraid to put themselves out there. And I think it's to, a disservice to them because, faster you get to work, the more opportunity costs are on your side, the more opportunity you have to start now building your wealth. I'm known as a debt slayer because of the $200,000 in student loans I slayed in 2.5 years. I hated those loans and dealing with the loan servicers. I was head down and focused and wanted to get rid of the debt as soon as possible. Knocking out these loans and seeing a zero loan balance was one of the most liberating feelings I have ever felt. But recently I learned that by not optimizing my student loan payoff strategy, I lost money. I'm talking about big money, y'all. I could have saved $80,000 if I had a customized student loan plan by the team at Student Loan Planner. Please don't make the same mistake as me. If you have student loan debt, especially in the six figures, head over to studentloanplanner.com/financially intentional to get your customized student loan plan today. Do you know how your retirement funds are invested? Do you know how much you're paying in fees? Chances are you're on the same boat as some of my coworkers. Some of them set up their retirement when they first got hired and never looked at it again. Some have let a computer select their investments and don't even know what they're invested in. Worst of all, some people have their retirement funds sitting in a savings account and they're not even invested in the market because they're afraid to lose money. That's hella scary, y'all. What's even scarier is that some of you listening don't even have a clue what I'm talking about. And guess what? This is super common. This has to change today. Let Bloom do the work for you. Head over to financiallyintentional.com/Bloom and get your free retirement account analysis. They'll check and see if your retirement account is optimized for you, and they'll let you know if you're paying too much in fees. That's Bloom with 3 O's. Bloom can also manage your retirement account on an ongoing basis so you can take the stress out of retirement planning. If you choose to work with Bloom, their fees are incredibly low, less than your Netflix subscription. You have enough to worry about. Let Bloom handle your retirement account. The hardest thing you'll have to do when it comes to your retirement is remember that Bloom is spelled with 3 O's. Head over to financiallyintentional.com/Bloom. Remember, spelled with 3 O's, and get your retirement account squared away today. Now you're using that income and that power that you have, economic power to, save and invest more than you've ever been able to do because you went from being on this debt payoff mode to now being in school mode, and now you're going to be in wealth building mode. The other thing also is a lot of these hospitals have funding to pay for your nursing, your BSN. So they'll pay tuition reimbursement, or some of them just totally pay the cost of your PSN. You might have to pay like the enrollment fees or things like that. But other than that, they'll pay the cost. And so your program is really dynamic in the fact that they allow you to go at a JC level, obtain your RN for so cheap, and then take your time with a guaranteed spot in a BSN program. I love it.
Exactly. That's what was so appealing about it, knowing that I didn't feel like I had to rush into it right away. And they just told me, you let us know when you want to start your first semester. And they have a layout of the order you could take the classes in. There's only 7 courses in this BSN level program. And I think I can guarantee I'll probably go that route, but it's nice to know I don't have to rush into it.
I really love that. And I just love that you guys have gotten debt free and you're staying debt free. Let's talk about any challenges that you experience on your debt elimination journey.
Yeah. So our biggest challenge was, I would say, just sticking with it and feeling confident in ourselves. There would be months that would come by where, we didn't follow through with our goals, and just falling off that wagon of, being on top of things. It kind of discouraged us at some point, but we were quick to refocus and get ourselves back on in line, and continue on in that straight path. But discouraging moments are sure to come up in a debt-free journey. Does not mean you're a failure. It just means you got to reassess and come back together, and kind of iron out those wrinkles and figure out what you need to do to ensure that you stay on track. Let me think about a moment about specific.
No, that was good. That was really good because I think that, yeah, I think that that's
Mhm.
important to note. Like, it's not just linear. It's just not like, oh, you're on this path and you achieve this goal. There's setbacks, there's things that come up, there's struggles, there's times that you don't hit your goals, and the discouragement is real. I mean, like, just being in the midst, it feels like you're never going to hit it. And then, we share this story like, yeah, it only took you 3 years, but I'm sure when you were going through it, you was like, this is taking forever. Like, I wish I could get from under this.
Yep,
And it could be really
tears and
stressful,
everything.
but at the same time, now you have this incredible journey that you're able to share to encourage other people. So, this is just some hope to spread to other people.
Mhm.
Like, you can do this. You'll go through setbacks. I mean, during my journey, I went through an
Right.
abusive marriage. I went through a divorce, all these life challenges happened, but I still did it. And if I can do
Mhm.
it, and if Danielle can do it, you can do it. And so, you know,
Yes,
keep the
I
faith, you
always tell,
guys.
individuals who ask me, "How did you get started?" I always say it's so important to admit to yourself first that you actually have the debt, and that it's not intended to be there, because once you accept it, it's going to sit there and you're going to be comfortable paying off those minimums and not seeing a dent being made at all. But once you admit to yourself and realize that you can live without this debt and you should live without the debt, your mentality is going to change, everything's going to reshift itself, and you'll surprise yourself the amount of effort that you put in to paying off your debt, and that you can actually do it.
Right, right. And that's why the Debt Snowball works initially, because it gives you like those wins, like those psychological wins, because, all this stuff, money is like very emotional, right? The way that we spend money is tied to our emotions, and paying back money and paying off debt needs to be approached with the same kind of emotions. And so the Debt Snowball really works because you see those wins and you're like, I can do this. This is possible. And I got this win. And it didn't really take all that. It wasn't like as scary and as painful as I thought it would be. And I love, like, you started with the Debt Snowball, but then you got into the swing of the things. You already got that momentum up. And so you were able to transition into the debt avalanche, where you focused on your interest rates and your higher
Mhm.
balance debts. So, I think that the importance is just getting started and gaining some momentum, and then you'll see what you're
Right.
capable of. Like, you guys, you can totally do it. So, a question that often comes up is how you and your partner can be on the same page during this journey. How did you guys stay on the same page?
We both are, I would say we're both very frugal individuals. We don't like to spend, we don't like to travel really. So we were on the same page in that sense. But as far as going back to traveling, my family lives in California. So that was our biggest struggle, is when are we going to go back for vacation? When am I going to, be able to spend $300-400 on a ticket and go back home? And during our debt free journey, we had to make that sacrifice and not send me home every couple months as I had wanted to, but we couldn't. So just coming to the realization that we have to be on the same page when we make sacrifices. I mean, we're married, we're doing this together. So when it impacts the finances at that magnitude, we had to agree. And that was a struggle in the beginning, but once we were on that same page, everything seemed to flow a lot smoother. And I would say, if you're not on the same page with your spouse or your significant other, I would honestly find a book related to finances and relationships and read it together. Come together if you read it individual and discuss, your individual insight on the content and see if you can come to an agreement on your specific journey. That's one piece of advice I like to give to people who are not on the same page as the person they're going on a debt-free journey with.
Yeah, I think that that's great advice.
Mm-hmm.
And I also think that you shouldn't let that discourage you from starting the journey. I mean, it is definitely harder when you have to do it alone, but I think that any progress is greater than no progress. So I would say if you're really committed to paying off debt and your partner isn't on board, go ahead and get started, but do frequent check-ins with your partner. And I like to call them like dream meetings, like what would the ideal life look like? And then, later on being like, oh, well, if we did X, Y, and Z with our budget, we could actually do that like next year, and you kind of tie those goals to your dreams. And then it makes people more willing to have those money conversations and also more willing to get on board
Mm-hmm.
with you financially. I mean, like me and my partner, for example, came from two totally different, like we got together after I had paid off all my debt and stuff. And he, was still in the midst of a whole lot of financial issues. And so we weren't necessarily on the same page, but he saw what I was doing. And, it's not like he was like, oh, yeah, I'm going to jump on board 100%. But slowly he was just like, oh, okay, well, these are ways that I can improve. And, oh, okay, these are ways that, I can save. And this is what I could be doing to my retirement funding. And like in the course of 2 years, even though he started off way behind me, he's surpassed my credit score. His net worth has increased like 200%.
Oh.
So it's just like, people are, they're watching. And hopefully your loved one has your best interest at heart and has the best interest of your
Definitely.
family at heart.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not like they're not on board with you because they're bad people. They just don't necessarily see things like you see them, or don't necessarily have the same motivation behind doing things that you want to do. But I say, blaze your own trail and they'll catch up. No worries.
Right. It'll happen.
It'll happen, but don't let that be a deterrent. So you have dropped some great gems and I love the advice that you've given. Let's talk about like, what are your financial goals, or what is your immediate financial goal besides getting out of school debt free? What's the next thing what's the next goal that you want to achieve financially?
So the next goal that I think I am primarily focused on to achieve financially is obviously paying off our house. We have, I guess it would be a long-term goal of paying off our house within, or that short-term goal, is that 5 years? I can't remember. So I can't remember which is long-term or short-term.
It's up to you to define that.
All right. So, okay. The next goal that we would like to achieve is actually paying off our house. We have been in this house for a little over a year. We actually have moved here last August, and our goal is to pay it off within the next 5 to 6 years. So that is, contingent upon me graduating nursing school and landing a good paying job. And we fully intend on not using that anticipated income for anything else except for putting toward the house to pay it off. So I think it's actually pretty doable, the pay rate for nurses here and how much our current mortgage is. Seems like we could get that done within 5 to 6 years. So that is one of our biggest goals that we're focusing on right now.
Yeah, I think that that's pretty incredible because owning the place where you live brings a whole lot of peace of mind for some people. And I know that there's this debate in the community, paying off your house versus investing. And I feel like you can go either way. But at the end of the day, like I said, personal finance is personal, and it's about
Exactly.
what brings you peace of mind. So I think that that's a great goal. And yeah, I would call that definitely a short-term goal.
Yeah.
As far as like paying off a house, because if you think like you guys just owned the house for a year, so that's like within 7 years of owning a house, you're going to pay it off versus the traditional 30 plus years, because most people refinance their loans in the 30 years. That's an awesome goal to have. And yes, very short term. So I know
Mhm.
we talked a little bit, well, actually, we didn't talk about investing. So during your debt payoff journey, did you guys invest at all? Because, you know, Dave Ramsey, once you're in debt payoff mode, does
Yeah.
not investing.
Yes. And, we can always talk about how debt-free journey is specific and it's not cookie cutter. And so we still contributed to our retirement accounts while we were employed, although I'm not employed right now. But that's one thing that we did not do away with, and that worked for us. So we always put in toward our retirement accounts and had the employer match. So it was always at 6%. And anything else that was, we'll scratch that. Yeah. So it was,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. So
good.
you always funded your retirement up to the match. Yeah, that's
Hmm. Yes, we
that's
did.
great. So what are you guys doing right now as far as investing? Are you just focused on saving and paying off?
Yeah. So we're focused on saving now, and my husband still contributes to his retirement account, and he also, does stocks, which I have no knowledge of, so I can't speak to that, but he has some money in some stocks out there. But yeah, I think once I get employed, I will be jumping right back into the swing of things and contributing to my retirement account as well.
I think that that's good, but you guys are going to be so set. Like I said, you are have been used to paying down debt, paying for your education. And
Hmm.
so imagine, even if it was just like that $9,000 that you put a year towards your investing, like how
Exactly.
fast your path would be towards financial independence, I think is so beautiful. So, on top of all the other advice you've given so far, what other advice would you have for
Mhm.
people who are like really looking for a way to turn their finances around and to not feel like they have to live with limitations? I know we talked about you wanting to live in one of the most beautiful places in the world, if I have to say so, and not having
Yes.
to be struggling, like being basically wanting to have a limitless living experience. So, what advice do you have for
Mhm.
people who aspire to live limitlessly?
I would say first reach out to people who would not mind hearing your frustrations, how to get started, because honestly, when people ask me questions, I am more than willing to share, but I'll only share it if they ask. I'll post on social media and everything like that, but if it's a personal individual that I know personally, I would hope that they could trust that I would give them advice if they ask. So seek out people who you feel that would give you, advice how to help you get started. There's blogs out there, there's podcasts such as this one.
It's just expand your circle of influence, right? It's just like make sure the people that you're surrounding yourself with are people that you aspire to. If you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room, right? You should continuously be learning, you should continuously be
Mhm.
growing. Stay off of social media for
Yes.
gossip and start getting on there for inspiration. Like pretty
Yes.
like I have a Facebook group where, you know, you can come in, it's totally free. You come in, you can ask a question and you'll get my opinion and you'll get other people's opinion and, you know, just take action. And I think that that's super important. So I love that you share that, you know, reach out, just ask the questions. Don't feel intimidated.
Yeah.
Just ask,
Reach
you
out.
know, and you never know how far
Mhm.
you can come by just asking a question. So, yeah, that was a great response. And Danielle, to wrap things up, if people want
Yeah.
to follow you on social media, how can they do that?
Yeah, I am on Instagram and my handle is onward2rn. Play on words, I'm, on my way to getting my nursing degree and I don't plan to change it, even after the fact. So that's where you can find me. I post inspirational messages and finance related stuff, nursing related stuff. So yeah, that's where you can find me on Instagram. I'm not active on any other sites. So
Well, make sure you follow Danielle at well, I can say Onward to RN on Instagram. And Danielle, it has been a pleasure speaking with you. I am wishing you the best in getting through nursing school. And girl, just get through it. Don't worry about it.
Thank
The
you.
circus grades, you'll do it. And
I believe in myself. Thank you.
I cannot wait to have you as a nursing colleague. And I know that you will be a phenomenal nurse and you will pour into those babies just like they need. And so
I appreciate that so much, Naseema. Thank you. It's been an honor to be here and share my story with you guys. So thank you.
and I'm looking forward to just going along with you on this journey. So thank you so much for coming on. All right, you guys. Wasn't Danielle the best? I cannot wait for her to become a NICU nurse. Our babies need her. She is so compassionate about life, about her family, her 2 little girls, and I know she'll transfer that compassion onto her job, especially because she'll be entering the workforce debt-free and well on her path to financial freedom. So my nursing notes for this episode is number 1, personal finance is personal. Danielle discovered Dave Ramsey when she set off on her debt elimination journey. Though she found the principles sound, she tweaked them to fit her lifestyle. She wasn't comfortable with the $1,000 emergency fund, and they continued to fund their retirement up to the match. So you guys, I was gung-ho on following the baby steps when I was paying off my debt, and it cost me a lot of money in taxes and retirement savings. So that's not to diminish Dave Ramsey's program. In fact, whenever I hear an incredible debt elimination story, most people attribute their success to his baby steps. I just think that we have to be careful about believing that there is a one-size-fits-all approach to personal finance. My next note is that nursing school does not have to cost a fortune. There are so many alternative programs that are budget friendly. I wish I had considered this during my school selection process. So if you're considering nursing school or you're thinking about pursuing nursing higher education, please search out affordable programs and see what your employer offers to cover the cost. And lastly, I cannot emphasize this enough, but if you're getting started, or heck, if you're anywhere on your journey to financial freedom, please reach out to others in the community for insight and inspiration. We have public platforms because we like to share our stories, so feel free to slide in our DMs. We want to help you, but we can't know unless you reach out. You've been listening to Nurses on Fire. If you want to learn more about me or my guests, check out our show notes page. If you found value, please support our show by supporting our sponsors and affiliates also listed in the show notes. If you like what you're hearing, we'd love for you to give us a 5-star rating and subscribe on Apple, Spotify, Google, or whatever podcast app you're using to stream this show. You guys, tell all the nurses in your life to subscribe. And if you know a nurse with a compelling money story and would like me to feature them, shoot me an email at naseema@financiallyintentional.com. All right, y'all. Much love and keep them fires blazing.
Thank you for listening to my mommy's podcast. Don't forget to subscribe. Bye-bye.